Hi, everyone. Coach Sullivan here again with MJS Coaching Football. First of all, I hope you'll subscribe to my channel. And then secondly, I just completed my 38th year coaching football, and I was a defensive coordinator, but I've also been over the years an offensive coordinator, special teams coordinator, head coach, both at the collegiate and high school levels. So thanks for watching. And in this presentation today, what I'd like to talk to you about is what we call our self-adjusting run supports force. So we're only going to take a look at one aspect of our total run support, and that is who has force. Okay, and specifically, because it really kind of shows you all the different ways we can self-adjust, and I'll get to that in a second. We're going to do it versus what's called 11 personnel, right? One back, one tight end, and the formations that are considered 11 personnel formations. Because I'm guessing you come across this once in a while. You know, the offense will have 11 personnel in the field, and then they'll come out in a two-back set, or they'll come out in a 10 or a 4 wide because they got an athletic tight end, right? And then you got to adjust to that. That's all a part of what we do. So let me start off with force, okay? Force for us, I'm going to skip all the way down to number 5, is specific to the run game. So force is run contain. I'm not a big fan of using the word contain as the term, because to me in a run game, you say contain, kids can sometimes play passive and say, I was outside, coach. It cut inside of me. Well, yeah, dude, the sideline could do the same thing, right? So I prefer to use the term force. You know, come up hard, be aggressive, take on lead blockers, protecting your outside arm and leg, but really condensing and forcing the ball back into your run pursuit. Hence, that's why we use the term force. So this particular presentation is going to show you how our force, how we determine who has force, is self-adjusting based upon the formation. Okay? So what the key terms will be, start off with what we call sky and less. This is part of our teaching progression. It is sky unless, okay? Sky equals safety. So we try and do everything so it makes sense. At least to me. If it don't make sense to me, it's not going to make sense when I try and teach it because it won't make sense to me, right? Sky, S, safety. Safety has force. So in our defense, safety has force unless, okay? Then we're going to learn about orbit, which brings in the unless part of it, right? Orbit versus number 2, detached. And orbit, O, equals the outside linebacker has force, okay? Then we're going to learn about cloud versus what we call a single width or a wing. And cloud, C, corner. And so we teach our kids these different situations, and then on their own, they make that turn. I never signal, excuse me. I never signal the run support, ever. Okay, and that is really the premise of this particular presentation. How is it I never signal it, and by teaching it at sky and less and teaching our kids the scenarios, how is it we always end up, much more often than not, with the correct defender having force on a run play? Okay? Then I'm going to talk to you about what we call hammer, why we would make a hammer call. And what the hammer call involves is literally the cornerback and safety switch, literally switch positions. So we'll get to that scenario, but there's a very good reason why we would do that or empower our kids to do it. And like I started with force, that's the run contain. So the what we call the base 6, right? The 6-pack of 11 personnel, 11 formations, Dallas, Dallas tight, Dallas wing. So these are all 2x2, okay? And then Texas, Texas tight, and Topeka are all 3 by 1. Begins with a D, it's a double. 2 by 2. Begins with a T, it's a triple. 3 by 1. Okay? So, first up, we're going to have Dallas. Okay? This is Dallas. And all we say is it's Dallas because quarterback's under center. So for us, Dallas is QB under center, the one running back behind him, and it's usually 6, 7, sometimes 8 yards, depending on the scheme, speed, or both. All right. So here is the sky unless. Okay. 2 is a part of the formation, so it's a 2 receiver thing. It's sky. It starts off as sky, so as soon as I make all my calls and clap and the kids are all looking out the offense from their scrum positions, the front 7 up near the ball, the secondary 12 yards over the ball area, they're all screaming, sky, 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 just to reemphasize, it's sky. Let's see what the offense does. So they line up in Dallas, okay? Left rip. I'm not planning on going through the alignment rules here, okay? So he says it again, sky, 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 sky. So he's telling everybody he's got the force. Over here, here's the unless. The unless is if 2's detached. 2 is detached. So for us to be considered detached, it is 5 plus yards from the tackle. And I don't want the kids overly thinking. I said, if you have any doubt, check orbit. Okay, I mean, if you're going to sit there and take out the old term micrometer, well, actually, it's 4 yards, and that, give me a break. All right. Any doubt, check orbit. Safest way to go. Check orbit, check orbit, check orbit. Because remember, orbit now makes the safety a stack defender, which means both guys are part of the force. Okay? The safety makes the outside linebacker right. So if the ball gets outside of him, the safety's the secondary force. If the dime or outside linebacker, dime in this case, forces the ball back inside, the safety fits inside, right? Makes it right. Boom, done. Okay, so that is the sky unless. Sky is the safety. Okay, aiming point 2 yards outside the edge that moves. This force angle depends upon what the play is, the angle of the football, the course of the ball, if you will, right? So I'm not planning on getting into any of those particulars either. This is just teaching you in this presentation how our kids are taught to self-adjust who has force depending on the formation, okay? So, everybody good there? So the next one is what we call Dallas tight. Dallas tight, right? So I'm not going to keep doing this with the safety. In Dallas tight, sky, stay sky. What makes it tight, just think back to 5 plus shots from the tackle, makes it detached. Well, in tight, number 2 is inside of 5 yards. We don't say he has to be a perfect wing off the tackle 1 by 1. If he's 1, 2, 3, 4 yards outside the tackle, okay, that's a Dallas tight to us. Okay? So now, it's sky again. So remember, the whole thing starts off by signal clap, which tells them to turn to the offense. They're screaming sky. The offense comes out. They make Dallas tight, 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 sky, 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 sky on both sides. Right? Goes back to the simple rule. Is two detached? No. If it's too close to call, you say, yes, he is. Check orbit. All right, boom, done. So again, this number 2. He might be 2 yards outside the tackle or 3 yards. Dime stays head up on him so he can't get blocked down on, and they get the edge on a toss sweep or a pitch or anything. Okay? Sky. That's Dallas tight. Okay? Hopefully this is making sense. The next one is going to bring in both our cloud and our hammer call. Okay? And that is Dallas wing. Okay? Now, Dallas wing is, in this case, right, it's 11 personnel, it's an 11 formation. We've played a lot of teams that will give you 12 personnel, but then come out in Dallas wing in 11 formation. Okay, so going to get to the hammer call, and that one's going to be an 11 at first, but then that would be a situation versus 12 personnel. All right, so let me get to this first. So, right, cloud versus single width or wing. Okay, that's a wing, a true wing. 1 by 1 off a tight end, maybe inside toe on the outside heel of the tight end, maybe. Okay, but this is when it automatically check cloud, 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 cloud. Who's in the best position to force the run play, right? The corner is. So Dallas wing is going to be a cloud. Check. We say check cloud, like check orbit. Remember, it's sky and less. So 2 detaches, check orbit. Safety says check stack. Wing, check cloud. So that tells the whip in this case, move up to 8 yards over number 1. I mean, you talk about a run-heavy side of the formation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gaps over here. Woohoo! So we move the whip up. Okay, it's very, very little pass threat over there. There's a big run threat. Okay, so that's the wing. That's the check cloud. Single width is coming. That's a formational thing. Okay? So now I mentioned the hammer. I mentioned this is a formation where teams will give you 12 personnel and come out in this 11 formation Dallas wing. Okay? So we signal our kids, we got the sign-ups at 12, 12, 12. Kids are screaming 12. But what we also tell them is confirm the formation. You're not necessarily going to get a 12 personnel formation, which are different formations with the 2 tight ends. You might get an 11 formation. So the 2 tight ends come out, and one's a wing, one's the tight end. Westfield State University used to do this all the time in this formation. Okay? So over here, check orbit. Over here versus 2 big nut tight ends. This is when we go hammer, 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 and the bigger safety is going to come down, and now the boundary corner is going to be 8 yards over number 1. And it remains sky. It doesn't have to say check sky. He just says sky, sky, sky because he's the safety. Hammer switches the corner and the safety. So you want a bigger body up there, like Westfield State, they're going to run the football over there, outside zone, speed option toss, make a hammer call. So that's what we did. And that's what we continue to do, and we teach our kids to do that. Okay? So that's how we dictate, how we self-adjust. The kids know who should have force, and they make the call. Again, starts with sky, unless, and that's when it goes either check orbit or check cloud. Hammer check. Stay sky. So, he doesn't have to say stay sky. He just goes hammer, 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 sky. That's it. Okay? So that takes care of the 2x2 sets. Dallas, Dallas tight, Dallas wing. Now I want to introduce the same exact concept to you, but when it's a 3x1. Okay? So just give me a moment here and I will set up the board. So the first one's going to be Texas. Okay? T for Texas. 3x1. And so what you're also going to learn about now is our automatic self-adjustment to 3x1 in 11 personnel. Oops, sorry. So Texas itself is 2 wide receivers on the side of the tight end, right? Texas with 1X away. We use states, and that's how my brain thinks, so that's how I present it to the kids. 3 receivers with 1X wide split wide receiver away from the 3. That's why we have a 1 and a 1X. And more often than not, this is their dude, right? Trying to get one-on-one. So the first thing is the self-adjusting, how we line up. Sky. Two detached. Yes, he is. He's 5 yards or more from the tight end now. It's not in the tackle, so it ends up being the end of the box. Check orbit. Same thing. It's sky and less. Hey, 2's detached. Even in Texas, it becomes orbit. Stays sky over here, becomes orbit over here. Boom, done. And yes, that is our built-in way to line up in our base 3-4. You're going to have to see my 3x1 check coverage playlist, how we adjust our self-adjust from our match gray quarters into our check steel. That's another presentation. For now, the run force and supports, that's it. See how it stays consistent? So now, Texas tight, okay? Number 2 is inside of 5 yards. Think back to Dallas tight. He's inside of the 5 yards. It becomes the same thing. It stays sky. And so the dime, if he's 2, 3, 4, 5 yards, he's head up. If he's inside of 2, he's an outside shade, just so he doesn't get blocked down on. And the safety has to run from 12 yards to get there. That's it. It's still sky, though. Goes back to the same premise. It's sky unless 2's detached. And detached is 5+ yards from either the tackle, if the tackle's the edge of the formation, or a tight end if the tight end's the edge of the formation. And if the tight end's the edge of the formation, it's a 3x1. Okay? So last and certainly not least is what we call Topeka, and this as well will bring in our self-adjusting way we line up. Okay, so again, if you just give me a minute here, I will draw up what we call Topeka. Okay, and so for us, Topeka is that single width formation. So think back to the rule. Cloud versus wing, what you saw and learned about. Now you're going to learn about single width. Okay? So single width, hence Topeka. Sorry about this. I knew this was going to happen, so I got my replacement ready, right? Man down. Here we go. Topeka is a 3-by-1, 3 wide receivers with a single width tight end away. Okay? Single width tight end away. So that means the tight end is the end of the formation. It's not the same as unbalanced. That's a nub, which is a 2-man surface. Single width is a 3-man surface, but the tight end's number 1. Okay, so that hopefully defines what we call single width. So now what we do, since the formation is cranked, we crank with it. Okay? And again, you have to see my 3-by-1 playlist, but we call this check turbo. Turbo is specific to Topeka. The formation's unique, turbo's unique. And this is the turbo. This is the self-adjusting. The offense comes out in Topeka, whoop, kids know what to do. This is it. And again, you could say, well, so does the offense. To quote Jimmy Johnson, hey, I don't care if the offense knows what we're doing. I want to make sure we know what we're doing. Sometimes we tend to outcoach ourselves. This is the first way, and if the kids can only handle this, this is the only way we line up to Topeka. We have one other way to do it if a team is equal threats on both sides. Okay, again, that's another playlist. 3-by-1. So over here, okay, right? 2 and 3 are detached, but starts with 2. So because the safety is outside of the dime, right? It stays a sky because the safety's over 2. The dime becomes the stack, except the dime stays inside. So your 2 force defenders are side by side. So we say the outside of the 2, which is going to be the free, the guy over 2, he has force, so sky stays sky. Okay, to answer that question. Over here, single width, check cloud. Who else is going to get it, right? I mean, think it through. This is how we line up to it. Single width, it's check cloud. And versus Topeka, I will tell you this. He's 1-by-8 outside the tight end. Tight end blocks. He reads surface. Nothing changes. He reading surface. The surface is run. The tight end's in the run block. Boom! He comes down in force. So, again, sky and less. Sky is the safeties. The safety has force, which is hard, run, contain. Force it inside, right? Unless 2 detaches, and that's 5+ yards from the edge of the formation, tackle or tight end. And then it becomes orbit. Okay? Single width or wing, it becomes cloud. If it's a 12 formation, we can make a hammer call. Safety and corner literally switch. All right? In the case of one case, and this is why it works, because it's unique and the kids know it's unique. When you have your sky, when you have your safety and your outside linebacker side by side, my apologies. It's sky because he's over number 2 and the stack defender is inside over 3. Okay? And that's it. Boom, done. And I'll tell you right now, the rules for this stay the same. 10 personnel, 12 personnel, 13 personnel, 20 personnel, 20. The rules remain the same. I just choose to teach versus 11 personnel, 11 formations because it's easy to see visually. And then the good news is the rule doesn't change no matter the personnel, no matter the formation. Okay? So as I mentioned earlier, I hope you subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions, I'll mention it now. Please reach out to me at CoachMJSullivan@gmail.com because I would love to talk football with you.